everybody. We're here back with Josh. We're gonna do a quick recap of the tournament, the Fall Classic in Minnesota. Josh, how are you doing?
Doing good, Martin. How are you?
Good. Here in sunny California. So tell me again, how was the format of the tournament and the teams that participated in it?
Yep. So we ended up having a six-team format. We did have a team drop out, and then just to make it even, our backup plan was to have six teams. So we switched to a six-team format. Our Minnesota Black team was able to get some exhibition games from Denver and West Point. So it was much appreciated by those teams to at least allow our newer players to get some to basically get some time that they can get some playing time. So we turned into a 16 format. So we had Minnesota, Milwaukee, Chicago, we had West Point, we had Denver, and we had Cal Heat. So it ended up being six teams. The format was basically group play, two groups of three, and then we would pretty much go right after the group play to the top two teams go into the semifinals, and then the last place teams in those groups would go straight to the fifth place game. So the groups ended up being one group was Chicago, it was West Point, and it was Denver, and then the other group was Cal Heat, Minnesota, and Milwaukee. So there's where the groups were situated in, and we had to basically reseed because the team that dropped out. So we had to basically do a redrawing of it, and those are the groups that we pretty much ended up with. But then pretty much went to a six-team format, and it actually was still very competitive. So we were still very happy with the results.
Okay, and those were the order of the rankings on in each group.
Oh yeah. So each group, those were the base. Those are the rankings for each group in order.
So you have Cal Heat playing against Denver for the semifinal. No, West Point, right?
Yeah. So we had So again, it was Chicago, West Point, Denver, and then on the other group it was Cal Heat, Minnesota, and it was Milwaukee.
Okay. So how was the semifinal between Minnesota and Chicago?
Yeah. So the first semifinal, Minnesota against Chicago. It was definitely a tale of two halves. So first half, definitely Chicago came out really, really tough, as they usually do. They had a really great team at this tournament. And then when we got into the second half, Chicago had a pretty sizable lead. And then Minnesota actually started bouncing back and coming back, and we almost beat them, but lost them by a couple points. I will say in the winding moments, we were really getting goal after goal after goal and stop after stop after stop, and we really started bringing the margin close. But then a couple of Chicago's veteran players really came up strong, made some amazing, really tough shots against a really great goalie of ours, and they ended up winning it in the end. So got to give it to Chicago. They didn't falter when a Minnesota team was scrapping their way back to try and win, and then Chicago pretty much made it on to the final. And then in the other game, it was West Point versus Cal Heat, and I got to give it to West Point. They came out firing. They really came out with a strong team, strong effort. They really ran all over Cal Heat from what it looked like on the sidelines when I was watching it. All I can say is it really was a team effort, but you really got to give it up to Gary Phillips as the right back. He really led that team past a pretty mighty San Francisco team that was doing pretty well in this tournament and looked pretty much primed to make that final. But West Point decided, no, you're not going to. We're going to go to the final. They ended up winning by a pretty good amount, and it was pretty much going to be Chicago and West Point in the final.
Yeah, West Point is always a hard opponent, especially when you go into a physical kind of game and running. But so before we go to the final, how was the third place game? You have Cal Heat against Minnesota, the local club, right?
Yep. So Cal Heat against Minnesota. I'll be completely honest, especially for somebody who played for Minnesota. I really wish we would have had a better game. I really wish we would have brought a little bit more effort. But kudos to Cal Heat. They came out already playing us before as we were the first game for the tournament. It was Minnesota Cal Heat, and it was a really close one that Friday game. Cal Heat made adjustments, and they knew exactly how to attack us in our vulnerable positions, and we really didn't have an answer for them. They really ran us out of the gym. They really did show how strong of a team they were. I could also see that they were maybe a little bitter that they weren't in the final, so they really wanted to make sure that they put their name on that third place game. They did exactly that. But I will say, like, we definitely didn't just like lay back and let them win. We were definitely fighting back in the second half to make it a little closer. But again, Cal Heat really came out strong and they came out fighting, and we really didn't have a chance to make a true comeback. And there you go. Cal Heat takes third place in that game.
All right, and then the final
Then
is
for the
yeah,
championship,
yeah. Sorry, the final now we have Chicago against West Point, two teams that play in the group phase before, with Chicago coming on top. So how did the final unfold?
in the beginning, you could definitely see it was going to be a close game. Very much it was going to be head to head, just like it was in the group play game when Chicago and West Point played each other. There was, I can't even remember like the certain point. It was the second half, but it was like a distinctive point when West Point really started going ahead and really started taking control of the pace, the game. And I mean, Chicago really had a lot of players stepping up because I know that Chicago also did lose their center back, Soupy, to an injury. Chicago stayed in it and they were going strong even without their top scorer, their leader. But West Point, again, I feel like this West Point team as a whole team was just in tune with each other. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They really didn't make a lot of like young mistakes. They really didn't. It didn't seem like the moment was too bright for them. They really seemed like they were prime to win the rest of the games through in the semifinals and the final. Uh, it got to a certain point where you could really tell it was still close, but West Point had the advantage, and eventually West Point won it. Uh, Again, it wasn't like a big margin of victory for them. It was still pretty close, but there was a good significant amount of time that you could tell that West Point was just in control and they just had to do no wrong and they were going to win.
All right, that's good for. This is the first time that West Point wins your tournament, right?
Absolutely. The great thing about the Fall Classic is there has never been a repeat.
Okay.
It has been a different winner every single year, and that tradition continues. And who knows, the tradition could continue even into next year.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Perfect. And as an overall balance of the tournament, how did you think it went? What things you think the teams appreciated, and if you have any surprises during the tournament, like a team overperforming or underperforming, something that caught your attention.
Yeah. Uh, I'd say the biggest thing is this facility is really great. It's a really great facility. It's sizable. You really have a lot of the amenities that you're looking for in a facility. The floor is well taken care of. So I was really happy with the facility and just overall the help that the facility gave. Overall, as a tournament organizer, I felt like it was better than the year before, and that's always what we strive for with the Fall Classic is just to make sure that it's better than the year before. I would say the only hiccup was for some reason the water was not working in the showers, so unfortunately the teams had to go home, maybe smelling not the greatest. I understand that, especially just being at a tournament recently and being able to shower. That I appreciate when a team is able to do that. That'll definitely be fixed for next year. It seemed like it wasn't really an issue of the water wasn't even turned on. It seemed like they were having some sort of plumbing issue with the water. So that's the only hiccup that we have in the tournament. So be it. Everything else was good, and no major hiccups that happened. As far as surprises, I will say West Point really surprised me. Coming back and winning it, especially in the group play, like losing to Chicago, but then beating Denver. I even remember that game against Denver. Like there were points where it was like, okay, Denver's doing pretty well against West Point, And I mean, Denver had a really great team there too, but it didn't seem like West Point was quite clicking at that point. Something happened in the semifinals where they clicked and they really became that strong team that they knew that they brought. I would definitely say they were the surprise of the tournament. Um, Underachieving, again, I'll put the focus on myself in Minnesota. We know that we're a better team than the showing that we had with some of those matches that I'm sure many of you watched. Um, but that would probably be the only like underachieving I would say is I'll just put the focus on Minnesota.
Mhm.
We definitely had a like first tournament maybe jitter out of it, but all I can say is that we are already noticing changes in our team, so we're looking to bounce back and really continue to make a name for ourselves continuing this season.
All right, perfect. So we have West Point in the first place, Chicago second, Cal hit third, Minnesota four, and then we have Denver fifth.
Yep, Denver took fifth, and then Milwaukee
Okay,
took
sixth.
sixth.
And who were the winners of the individual awards in the tournament?
Yeah, yeah. So I know that we had a all tournament team as well. We had a left wing Joaquin T from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Left back all tournament team was Sam E from Minnesota. Center back all tournament team player was Soupy from Chicago. The right back all tournament team player was Gary P from West Point. The right wing was Patrick R from West Point. The circle runner or the pivot was Sed S from Chicago. And the goalkeeper all tournament team player was Patrick J from Chicago. As far as the individual awards, the MVP was Soupy from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
We felt like, you really could see that he was the most valuable player on one of these teams during the tournament, especially when he got hurt. Chicago really lost a lot of his steam in that finals, so we felt like it was right to give Soupy that MVP trophy. MVG was Liam G from West Point. Like I said, from the semifinals to the finals, he came out and he showed that he is a dominant goalkeeper in the USA. It was amazing some of the saves he was making. He really took over some games in the semifinals and the finals. I'll be honest, it was between him and Patrick as far as the best goalkeepers,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to give it to Liam, especially closing out that game and just his performance in the semifinals and the finals. I will make this point though: every single goalie for every single team could have easily won MVG at this tournament. A lot of people were even talking about it. The fact that Richard from Milwaukee, Gomez from Denver, Peter from Minnesota. We talked about Patrick from Chicago, talked about Liam from West Point. And again, even the double-headed monster of Cal Heat, switching the goalies throughout the first and second half. Every single goalie that we saw in goal, they could have won MVG. So just shout out to the goalies that performed at the Minnesota Fall Classic. Any one of you could have won this MVG. And then high scorer was Gary Phillips from West Point. Again, he just could not miss a shot. He played fantastic. Again, a junior national team player for the USA. He had a fantastic tournament. And again, he led his team to the championship.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for giving us the overview of the recap of the tournament. And we hope to see everybody at the next tournaments and at the end of the season at Nationals. And who knows, maybe this is the year where West Point actually competes for the tournament in Elite, right?
Absolutely. I encourage that they do. They have a really great and solid team that could, make some headaches for some elite teams at Nationals.
All right. Thank you so much.